Hi guys, and welcome back to the Early Bird Photo News. I've just come back from a trip to remote Queensland last night, and up there we were photographing the rare and endangered golden-shouldered parrot. And while there was a few difficulties at the beginning in finding the right birds in the right spot, we ended up coming home with over 15,000 photos and hundreds of videos. So I still have to go through them, but hopefully, fingers crossed, there should be some nice images and some good footage in there. A lot of you guys actually asked me when I left, how do you pack all your gear for air travel? So I thought I'll just share it with you now because I still haven't unpacked my bag. This was my carry-on bag. This is an f-stop Ajna bag with an extra large ICU inside that basically goes all the way to the top up here. And the advantage is that then I can fit my 600 in this smaller carry-on sized backpack. So let's open it up. And in here we see 14 to 35. We see my 600mm RF prime lens without the lens hood. The lens hood I always put into my suitcase. Up there we have the 100 to 500mm lens. And then down here we have two cameras, one R5 with a grip and another R5, but actually when I was doing the carry-on there was an R3 in there. Also had a couple small things in there, all my lithium batteries and my laptop. So all in all the bag weighed about 14 kilos. But luckily no one weighed it. This trip to remote Queensland was actually the main reason that I bought the R3 a few weeks ago. Ironically, I basically did not use it to take photos at all, but it quickly became my main video camera because in that area the R5s really let me down. You know that I've been a big supporter of the R5 over the years and I love it for photos, but ever since I've moved to hotter climates it has become a real struggle when it comes to taking video. I still own two R5s, and if you personally are only taking stills, this may not affect you. But for me personally, in the field, whenever I wanted to switch to video on this trip, the R5 basically said overheated, or there was only 1 or 2 minutes of videos left to film. So I had planned to do a lot of slow motion video, a lot of 4K, 8K filming, and all that became a real struggle because suddenly I was only left with one viable camera for filming, and that was the R3. Most mornings and afternoons I would stand under a throw blind in the shade for maybe an hour or two. And oftentimes, even after just 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour, there was basically no recording time left on the R5 because even without taking any video, it would still completely overheat, which was really disappointing for me. I basically started to micromanage the R5s all the time, taking out the battery, flipping open the screen, taking out the memory card, trying to cool that down a little bit to get a little bit extra filming time. But in the end, as you can imagine, that also caused me to miss some scenes because instead of focusing on the birds and the birds coming into me, I started to focus on not letting the R5 overheat. R3, on the other hand, did not have any trouble at all. I usually used it as my remote camera because it was the only reliable video camera that I was left with. I put it on a tripod far away from me. I connected it via Wi-Fi to my phone and then ran it remotely. I can change all the settings on my phones with that Canon Connect app. So that's really cool, and the camera actually did not overheat once. It was in the glaring sun for 3-4 hours at the time, and it was almost too hot to touch with my bare hand, but it would not overheat and I could always film nice 6K video whenever I wanted to. In colder climates, the R5 has been an amazing hybrid photo and video camera for me. Whereas up here, when it's hotter, the R5 really becomes a photo only camera, unfortunately. And all that makes me really hope that Canon will bring out an R1 rather sooner than later, because then I can finally have the R3 body with no overheating video, hopefully 30 frames per second and 45 or more megapixels. All this makes me wonder about the upcoming R7 as well, because the rumor says that it will have 4K 60 video, so it would obviously have nice 4K 30 video as well. And with the smaller sensor, I'm hopeful that it may not overheat, although unfortunately it may have still some crop in video mode as well, which wouldn't be ideal, but hopefully it could be another camera that can at least film 4K in nice quality for a few hours. Talking about the R7, it seems like all the specs we talked about in my last video are true. We're going to get a 1.6 crop camera, 32.5 megapixels, 4K 60 video, IBIS, all the goodies basically. So the only question really remains for me, how is the ISO performance? And we will probably hear about that very soon because the announcement will be on May 24 next week, and the delivery is scheduled for some time at the end of June. So fingers crossed I will be showing you an R3 somewhere here very soon. What excites me about the R7 is the prospect of using it with the 100 to 500 millimeter lens, because for birding, for instance, or people that just want to walk around with a small light combo, this could be an amazing combo. You have an R7 on here, you have a 160 to 800 millimeter lens when it comes to effective focal length. And if you put a 1.4 extender on here, you get 1120 millimeters of focal length in this tiny, tiny little package. So I think this would be an amazing walk around combo. I could even see myself keeping an R7 long term to using it with this lens if it can perform well enough in the ISO department, because this lens is wide open at f7.1, so you'll definitely have to push your ISO at times. Canon will also announce the R10 on May 24. The main interesting thing for me there will be, is it going to be a similar body to the R7, or is it going to be a smaller camera? I expect the R7 to be similar to the R6 in size and body, but for me, I'm not quite sure yet what the R10 will look like, so that will be very interesting to see. In better news from my trip that are not related to overheating is that the tripod I showed you last week has performed very well in the field. This is the Pro Media Gear TR344L, and I'm just really happy with it. It's nice and sturdy with my RF 600mm lens, and the best part about it is really that it's so light, but still goes all the way to 1.8 meters in height, because oftentimes I had to stand near a creek, there was rocks, very uneven ground. So having the ability to have the legs at all different length, and one leg, for instance, really long in the water and then two legs shorter on a rock, really helped me to be able to basically set up wherever I wanted. And I know I would have struggled a lot more with my Gitzo tripod that was simply shorter. Of course, there's other long tripods you can do the same with, but for me, so far, this is a very good tripod because the size and weight and height are just so nice. And if you're a bird photographer and want to learn all about image editing, I highly recommend that you check out my PROSETS and Masterclass down there in the description, because the PROSETS will help you with just one click to transform your RAW files, and my Masterclass will teach you step by step all the necessary things you need to do to make your own images look amazing. So make sure to check these out. If you're one of the few people, or at least I expect it to be only a few people, who ordered the RF 800 or RF 1200mm lens, they're scheduled to start shipping on May 26, so you should have them very soon with you, hopefully even sometime next week. Today I also read a very interesting rumor that Nikon is already working on its next big prime lens, a Z-mount 600mm f4 S-line prime lens with a built-in 1.4 extender. And apparently the lens also going to have amazing sharpness even with the 1.4 extender switched on. While that lens sounds really amazing, there's another very exclusive thing about it, and that is said to be the price. While the 6.3 800mm lens comes in at a very reasonable price, it sounds like this new 600mm lens with the built-in 1.4 extender will cost a lot more. And personally, I would probably expect it to slot in somewhere right around that RF 5.6 800mm lens. So maybe 17 or 18,000 US dollars, which would make it a very pricey offering for sure. This stage, we don't know. We probably have to wait till the end of this year or early next year to hear a proper announcement, but it's definitely awesome to see how Nikon is innovating that big lens prime space. So what do you guys think? Is that a lens that interests you? I mean, if it's close to 3 kilo and has the built-in 1.4 extender with great image quality, it definitely sounds like a lens that would be very amazing for many bird photographers out there. Before I started filming this video, I also just came home from the post office and got myself a Really Right Stuff replacement foot. I haven't unpacked it yet, so I thought I'd do that live on camera. And there it is. And this foot will go right onto the bottom of my 600mm RF lens and replace the Canon foot with the heavy lens plate. I can already feel in my hand how light this is and how much nicer it will be to have this on the lens, because I don't have to have this plate and the foot, which will make the lens a little bit lower on the tripod, which is good. And it will just sit a little bit more sturdy and definitely save me a little bit of weight. So I'm very happy with this little purchase. I'm going to wrap up this video here now because I'll be speaking at the BirdLife Photography Conference at the Gold Coast this weekend, and rumor has it, I may still have to work on my presentations for that. So while I do that, make sure to leave me a comment with your thoughts about all the new gear coming out, maybe the R5 overheating, if you had some trouble with that. Give me a thumbs up for this video. I also really appreciate if you can send me some of those super things that a lot of you guys already have done, because that really helps the channel going. And also make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you very soon. Bye guys.